to do some more of this chapter. It's been a weird morning. Not bad, but navigating the complexities of life now. Right? Yeah. So, I'm going to read another chapter. I've got my daughter in the shower. We're starting with the shower today because school seems too tough. Chapter 2. 2 knocks on my dressing room door precede the turn of the knob. The collar doesn't wait. I don't have my vape. I have popcorn now. Look at that. Popcorn. I love popcorn. I made it through some pretty tough times with popcorn and water. Where'd I put it? Okay. Well, you can see my dogs here. That's Ace. And that's Riley, the Rocket Man. And that's a cool, I got this at a thrift store right here. It's pretty magical. I like it. I like to go to the thrift stores and whatnot and get different little treasures. Sometimes I'm guided to something, sometimes I'm not. I'm guided to a lot of things, but then I left so many different things and stuff behind. Like this last year when I moved here to where I am now, I was guided to just leave. And so I moved to another state. I kept hearing in my mind to keep taking the next step forward, beloved. And also that God was preparing a place for me in the presence of my enemies. And I don't like to think that I have any enemies, but I do know that there's a lot of things going on in the world right now that it is what it is and it ain't what it ain't. So, chapter 2. I've got my vape here. I don't want to go into too much. I don't really have to. My energy does its job. 2 knocks on my dressing room door precede the turn of the knob. The caller doesn't wait for an invite. This is how I suspect it isn't some fellow from the audience bearing a bouquet and sheepish smile, touting my resemblance to sensuous starlet Hedy Lamarr, which incidentally is a right stretch in my view. Not to say the remark is why. After my gracious bidding of thanks, I always send them on their way. I verge on doing the same now, albeit ungraciously, as Charles steps into the room. But first, I'll see what's left of his decency, if any. For those of you that didn't listen to chapter 1, you should. I did it last time. Seated at my mirror, I close the gap in my satiny stage robe, indeed to cover my brassiere, but also the residual quake in my hands, and eye his reflection. Although he switched into his trousers and undershirt, quick changes being a necessity of the trade. When the fall of the curtain launched me seething from the stage, I left him and his cohorts to corral our supplies. He has nerve, approaching me too soon. I'll grant him that much. Then again, it's a trait I personally helped cultivate. Swell space you got, he says, easing in, glancing around. His practiced stage diction is replaced by his casual Louisianan speech. I reckon we could do a whole lot shabbier. The remarks would once have been laced with playful irony, given the pitiful accommodations we've endured, specifically while traveling with variety shows before breaking out on our own. Surrounding me here are theatrical posters neatly hung, a proper costume rack, and a pair of cushioned chairs accented by a table, each incredibly with all four legs. Most comforting of all, I have a window large enough for an emergency exit. So yes, the room is rather nice, if smaller and mustier than the one assigned to Charles. I am certain of this without having to check. He's a man and the star. And long gone are the days when he at last offered to trade. What do you want, Charles? Just making sure you're okay. Oh, I say, since we're apparently playing games. Why wouldn't I be? He goes to speak, but resorts to a shrug, both shoulders draped with a towel. I guess you put two and two together. If by that you mean you're reckless, pompous, devious, come on, Finna, don't be sour. Sour? You think I'm being petty? The quirk of his thin lips says everything before he drops into one of the chairs. Even without the shadows from my vanity lights, he appears a decade beyond our common age of 24. Escapology can wear on a body. It's true. But his accumulating vices have by no means helped. Only his drying natural curls provide fleeting evidence of the friend I used to know. Look, I'm sorry it shook you up, I swear it. Is that so? Because you didn't appear to regret a thing. And frankly, you still don't. He hesitates, unable to argue. Ah, geez, you heard him out there. We were a smash. Typical misdirection. Another lesson I passed along. I clutch my robe harder, triggering a throbbing in my palm, a gouge of which Charles isn't aware. If he was, he would inquire about it, hands in our profession being as vital as those to a concert pianist. Fortunately, the wound required only iodine and a small bandage, giving me no cause to divulge the depth of my foolishness as he rattles on. Tell me you at least got a load of those dog faces. Even the big, beefy ones came charging for the stage when I busted out of the cabinet, saw it myself. Them dopes were scared out of their wits. I agree. They were dopes to ever worry. The barb soars right on by. Charles is too busy savoring the coup against his favorite targets. To him, this story just is so funny. To him was flat feet barring him from the draft. All enlisted men have become macho buffoons, hoodwinked into fighting someone else's war. Battling Japan, I can't see, he'd say, in light of Pearl Harbor, obviously, but why Germany and Italy and all those others? Admittedly skeptical of printed propaganda since my childhood, I had no answer. Oh, hey, did you hear the news flash? He goes on. House manager says the critic definitely caught the show. His ticket was picked up at the window. Just think of the write-up we're bound to get in the New York Herald Tribune of all things. I can imagine. Easily so, featured will be the lone achievements of Monsieur Charles Bouchard, an exotic title based less on his ancestry and basic French-speaking skills than my foresight to gain us prestige. But that's not the issue. And if you ask me, none of it matters a whit. His eyes go wide. None of? How can you say that? I thought this was about ticket sales, about building our reputation, top bookings. I swivel to face him. What matters is you should have warned me. He shakes his head, flabbergasted as if dealing with an obstinate child. Finna, for Pete's sake, me not letting on, that's the reason it worked. Your honest-to-goodness fear is what got him believing. All those surprises you didn't count on. You should have warned me, I start again. So I'd have known when to shout for help. My failure to calculate the clues, to anticipate his plot, is a point I'll begrudge myself for some time. It's my main cause now for not exploding. What if those people had made it to the cabinet seconds earlier? They could have pushed it over while you were in the milk can, or even in the midst of climbing your way out. He ponders this, then exhales and shows his palm. Okay, fine. I did cut it a little close. A little? I abandon refuting this, diverted by the drop and drag of his syllables, even heavier than usual, and I remember. Alternately, I suppose we could just blame the gin. His expression stalls. With an element of surprise reversing our roles, I press on. At least tell me it was the first time you've been dim-witted enough to drink before a show. The plea is real. I need to believe I haven't missed previous signs. Gathering himself, he insists. It was the first, all right, but it was nothing. I nearly laugh. You cannot possibly be serious. Only a few nips with the stagehands while ironing out details. I clench my teeth, unsure which bothers me more, his cavalier take on risking our livelihoods with more than a few nips, no doubt, and perhaps even between our acts, or that I had been ganged up on in a show of my own creation. Fuming, I shift back to the vanity. I'm tempted to hurl my wooden brush his way, but I resist. A lump to his skull, though much deserved, could interfere with the conclusion of our 3-day run tomorrow, and I'm in no mood for another debacle, including at our next stop, a promising venue in Boston. For now, my hairpins will have to take the brunt. I yank each one free and toss them aside. My twist unravels in a light bronze mess as I steer towards matters of business. We'll need a replacement axe and a new latch if it's damaged. I meet Charles's gaze in the mirror. Naturally, they'll come out of your share of the wages. Yeah, sure, why not? His indifference to any drain on his hard-earned dough suggests a touch of guilt. Or maybe it's the imbibement. I'll grab them at a hardware store in the morning. I'm about to reinforce that he'll do just that when I envision a mere day from now revisiting that dratted cabin. Although a kiddie show is taking our last matinee slot, leaving us just in an evening performance, I still think better of it. A change is in order. I'll get them myself. Come on, he groans. There's no need. He thinks I'm being dramatic. I'm being practical. I'll have to buy new pieces of wood anyway for the time being. Reluctant, I finish, or shelving the milk can escape. His forehead scrunches, but then he gets up, comprehending. You mean we're swapping it for the goblet? The hope in his voice makes me wince. I detest that the switch seems a reward for tonight, yet my desire to resume control, at least behind the scenes, wins out. And so I nod. He celebrates with a clap. Hot dog, finally. Despite his harping about our timing and maneuvering being fine-tuned for almost 2 months, I'd refrained from incorporating the flashy finale, even at theaters, with workable layouts like the one offered here. Though I've had my reasons. You just wait till the big finish, he murmurs. The audience will go batty. He's already visualizing the adulation heaped upon him, among his few priorities as of late. I cut short the vision. I presume I won't need a fresh set of keys. Huh? Yeah, already handled. It's a civil way to address the topic of regurgitation. And yes, Finna, they'll be washed up good as new. I'm not promoting vaping. His thwarting of my next question, fingering me as predictable, is just fine by me. A little good in my life has come from surprises. But it's the bother in his tone and edge he's become so quick to employ that grates on my ears. As if I'm a wife nagging over a chore as trivial as wiping his shoes at the door. Still, I refuse to give him the satisfaction of vexing me. More than he already has. Dandy, now if you don't mind, I'd like to finish dressing up. He obliges by rising, only to stop bemused. You saying you got some fancy plans? I realize I misspoke. My senses remain frazzled, all by his doing. No, I meant to finish getting dressed. He lifts a brow, probing like a nosy brother. I'm simply going home, I insist. Home, it sounds lovelier than the reality of my latest boarding house in a ceaseless string of rented rooms. On the rosy side, it's several city blocks from Charles's motel, a sizable distance presently welcome. At my unflinching gaze, he looks convinced, then inspired. You know, if you're game, we could paint the town. We got half a day off tomorrow, remember? Oh, I remember. And that break is just as welcome. I found a great jazz joint, the Tin Kettle. It's a real gasser, or we could hit a supper club if you're hungry. This is New York, after all. Lots of pretty swell things to do. Sure, and for a pretty penny. I'll pass. You enjoy, though. His shoulders sag and his smile goes weary. Yeah, well, can't fault me for trying. My answer isn't a shock to either of us. Want company for the walk back? Thanks, I say, but I'm fine on my own. After a beat, he nods. You always are. He might have intended the comment as lighthearted, maybe even snide. What emerged, paired with his deep-set amber eyes, reflects more of a sense of hurt. I stiffen as he heads for the door, the rift between us ever growing these days. Feels wide and ragged as a canyon. Partnership aside, we used to share a friendly comfort, often trading advice and opinions, his generally on food and politics, mine on his fashion picks and potential dates. Of course, that was before the girls more closely resembled conquests, and certainly before his bloated ego made him averse to any insight I'm inclined to give. Through it all, nonetheless, it does seem strange. He has no inkling of the history I've buried, of what I've survived. The wonder of how I survived it all. If he did, he might understand my dire need for self-reliance. Why I hoard every cent I earn. Why the walls around me serve to protect not only me, but those I yearn not to hurt. Charles, as I angle toward him, he turns back, expectant. I prepare to share, the words stringing together like colored kerchiefs, whatever, kerchiefs, from a conjurer's mouth. But at the shimmer of his hair and skin, still wet from his rogue stunt, logic intervenes. While minor in the grand scheme of things, his actions were a betrayal, an exploitation of trust, and beyond that, gratuitously dangerous. I voice only what's relevant. Drink again before the final curtain, and I'll call off the show. His jaw sets at the ultimatum. He grabs both ends of his draped towel and half bows. You're the boss. He shuts the door hard behind him as if he's the one with a right to be incensed. How is that even remotely reasonable? I twist back to the mirror, thankful I confided nothing. Relieved, and yet I appear as worn and agitated as I suddenly feel. I long for a bath, to scrub the rouge from my face and the kohl from my eyes, along with every memory of this night, including Charles and his parting sneer. Although he does have a point. From the get-go, I've been the person in charge, the one teaching, envisioning, solving, both the composer and the conductor. Virtually unseen at center stage. Perhaps someone other than Charles ought to be privy to that fact. That was chapter 2. Hidden in plain sight. Yeah, so it's interesting. The correlations. The first chapter ended with talking about a pawn, like a chess piece, and or unknowingly being used as a pawn. And then this one ends, right, about basically being hidden in plain sight, and yet is the one orchestrating and conducting it all. I also got this other book over here. I might read a little bit out of soon. But for now, I do like this one. I also have my 1-year Bible that I've been reading. I did one reading out of. So, but I do like this one. 'Cause the first chapter kind of caught me the other day. And second chapter is pretty good too. So I might continue this on a little bit. It gives me a little bit of a reprieve. And there may be somebody somewhere that sees this that maybe needed a little reprieve too. It was also kind of interesting. Anyways, I hope you have a beautiful day. Oh, and just for the record, even though there's a lot going on in the world right now, I don't have bad days. I have like crunchy moments, and people are like, oh, what's crunchy mean? I'm like, well, when things don't flow properly, you know, when things are like completely misaligned. However, it passes pretty quick, you know, which I'm really grateful for. Either way, God has me in the palm of his hand. All right.